as a Sierra Leone National Shipping Company. Now, away from that, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Timothy Kaba and the Chinese ambassador to Sierra Leone Wang Wing have launched the pilot land rehabilitation project in Tumbo community, Lower Bangbara Chiefdom, Kenema. The initiative aims to use innovative environmental restoration through sustainable livelihoods. Joseph Ture went along and our report.
When the name Tongo is mentioned, what comes to mind is mining. But after decades of extracting the natural resources here, like diamonds, little or nothing could be boasted of for a community once known for its beauty and economic activities. However, the touching down of a son of the soil, Timothy Kaba, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the Chinese ambassador to Sierra Leone, Wan Chin, and other government officials brought hope to the residents of Tongo community. The project, titled Innovative Environmental Restoration Through Sustainable Livelihoods in Small-Scale Mining-Affected Communities in Sierra Leone, was to bring back economic developments that resonate with the game changers of the government, including the Feed Salon program. At the official launching ceremony, local authorities, beneficiaries, expressed optimism that the project would make a great difference in the lives of the residents. The $50,000 initiative was supported by the Embassy of the People's Republic of China in Sierra Leone. According to the project coordinator, John Kanu, it targeted 45 women and would reclaim lands for agricultural purposes, including cultivating various vegetables 3 times in a year, having fish ponds, and a cold room with a solar panel. After inspecting the agricultural site, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Timothy Kaba said he was pleased to have the development undertaken in his hometown. He associated it with government's Feed Salon program.
Means a lot. Tongo fields like Kono district are all laying desolate after close to a century of mining. This project, sponsored and financed by the Embassy of the People's Republic of China in Sierra Leone, we've seen the transformation from dugout pits to a farmland, and also some of the pits converted into fish pond for economic activities. And the people are quite delighted. For me, it's a moral imperative that we bring back economic activities, alternative livelihood to this chiefdom.
The Chinese ambassador to Sierra Leone, Wan Chin, said he was happy to contribute to the economic development of Lower Bambara Chiefdom in Kenema district.
We meet the aspiration of the Sierra Leone people of Feed Salon and create more job opportunities. So I'm very happy to see the launching of this project.
Women's leader Nancy Gando saw the move as a game changer for them in that part of the country, even at the close of mining activities. Those who benefit directly said the project would enhance their livelihood when it's in full operation.
For now, this agriculture don't start full. Inside 3 months, we will process it. We will live inside with Pikine and the woman. We pay school fees for Pikine, then we will make them to my own self.
In appreciation of the kind gesture by the Chinese, local authorities crowned the Chinese ambassador as honorary paramount chief of Lower Bambara Chiefdom, Kenema district. He lauded them and also presented gifts to some of the schools in the community, like footballs and bags. The pilot project is expected to be extended to many communities affected by mining. SLBC, Joseph Ture reporting.
Now, former Minister of Youth by Mahmoud Bangura has hosted the 2025 BNB Annual Iftar Conference under the theme Uniting Faith for a Better Future. Mohammed Laminture was there and tells us more.
The event, held during the holy month of Ramadan, provided a platform for Muslims within the APC party to pray for the nation's progress, peace and unity, as well as the party's success in the upcoming general elections. It also brought together party stakeholders, grassroots supporters, and executive members to break their fast, emphasizing the Islamic values of giving and sharing during Ramadan. The conference featured the reading of du'as, seeking divine guidance for the country and the party. Imams deliver sermons, urging Muslims to uphold the teaching of the holy books, promote peace, and remain steadfast in their faith, especially during times of uncertainty. Addressing the gathering, Honorable Bai Mahmoud Bangwa highlighted the importance of unity in faith as a foundation for success. He described the annual Iftar conference as a moment for party members to come together, share common goals, and seek divine blessings during this sacred month.
I'm praying for the country because when we have a better change of our country, it's a reflection to our people. And I'll be satisfied that I have offered my own service. I've done that in the physical aspect. I work hard, I've served in various capacities. But I also believe that offering prayer can also serve as another strategic intervention in salvaging the situation. Because without the intervention of Allah, whatever we work, you work in vain.
The event concluded with party supporters exchanging ideas and breaking their fast in a spirit of togetherness, reinforcing the message of unity and faith as guiding principles for a better future. SLBC News, Mohammed Lamin to report to you.
Now, in a bid to motivate Muslims to recite the Quran during Ramadan, Tariq Hala Islamic Sisters Organization has held its 6th female annual Quranic competition at Deep Eye Water community. The venture was meant to imbibe in young girls the culture of memorizing the Quran. Mohammed Koma tells us more.
Women have taken it upon themselves to propagate the values of Islam through the Quran. Taqwa Islamic Sisters are perceived as role models within the Deep Eye Water community for their role in imparting Islamic knowledge on other women. The organization held its 6th female annual Quranic memorization competition for girls on different chapters of the Quran, especially in this month of Ramadan, when it is perceived that Allah sends the Quran as a form of guidance to mankind. The competition was intense as the young people demonstrated knowledge in diverse chapters of the Quran. Members of Taqwa Islamic Sisters encouraged the girls to be reciting and memorizing the Quran, especially during Ramadan. The winners of the various categories were provided with gifts to motivate them to do more, including the winner of the highest category, 10 Juzu, 11-year-old Fatmata Binta Jallo. For SLBC, Mohammed Koma reporting.
According to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, the ministry is set to play a pivotal role in an upcoming environmental conference focused on climate change. Minister Jua Abdullahi highlighted the ministry's active engagement in addressing pressing climate and environmental issues that are critical to the country's future. Our reporter Christiana Kamara has more.
In an interview with the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Jiwon Abdullahi highlighted the urgent need to protect Sierra Leone's natural assets, underscoring their significance for ensuring both water and food security, noting that the preservation of forests and natural resources was not just an environmental concern, but also essential for the survival and prosperity of communities. The minister outlined the ministry's approach to tackle environmental challenges, which includes strict enforcement of environmental laws and the promotion of sustainable fuel sources. According to him, the strategy aims to combat deforestation and pollution while fostering a transition to renewable energy options.
Which is the first one we're having here, is an opportunity for us to present to fellow Sierra Leoneans and to the world what the country's vision is for protecting our natural assets. We're bringing in stakeholders from across the country and around the world so that we can engage in working sessions and chart the way forward for Sierra Leone to better protect our natural assets, which provide a lot of critical ecosystem services.
The minister also spoke about the broader implications of environmental sustainability and climate action in Sierra Leone. He laid emphasis on the importance of a collective effort in addressing these challenges, calling for the involvement of all stakeholders, including local communities and youth. Looking ahead, Minister Abdullahi outlined a long-term vision for environmental sustainability in Sierra Leone, which involves an intergenerational approach.
I think deforestation is a big problem that we have, which is one of the areas we're trying to address. Plastics are another one, plastic pollution, especially in our waterways. That's also a topic that will be discussed here. Ways we can, first of all, avoid having the plastics in the oceans in the first place. And then lately we've had an issue with mining in our rivers, in which case we're stepping up collaboration across ministries, departments, and agency to increase enforcement. Because some of these, it's not just the Ministry of the Environment that can solve by itself. Right? So if you're talking about mining in our rivers, then we need to get these stakeholders I was talking to you about, the paramount chiefs. We need to get the local council involved because these are about solving these problems requires collective effort, and it's about making sure that all the stakeholders are aligned and understand that we need to work together to be able to address these issues.
He stressed the need to build on the achievements of the past while setting ambitious goals for the next 10 to 30 years. As the country prepares for the upcoming conference, the emphasis on collaboration and proactive measures reflects a growing recognition of the urgent need to address climate change and its impact on Sierra Leone. The minister's commitment to environmental sustainability signals a hopeful step towards securing a resilient future for the nation. Slbc News in Freetown, Christiana Kamara reporting.
Now, the Civil Society Consortium on Community Accountability and Service Delivery has viewed the operations of the secure port to be prudent contributions to national security in partnership with the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Immigration. Coordinator of the consortium, Harakoma, was speaking to the media during a news briefing in Freetown. Ibrahim Samora has more.
Since 2012, CSO Consortium on Community Accountability and Service Delivery has been monitoring with keen interest the complementary operations of Security Port, which has enhanced security solutions for civil aviation, border management, immigration, and threats assessment. Coordinator CSO Consortium on Community Accountability and Service Delivery, Awakuruma, in a press statement said the presence and operations of Security Port at the Freetown International Airport was vital in ensuring the safety of travelers through the implementation of a robust, modern integrated immigration control system.
The agency has worked in close collaboration with the government of Sierra Leone, particularly through the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Immigration, to enhance security, immigration, and control system.
The consortium lauded the government for the huge transformation of the airport, describing the facilities at the airport as one of the premiers in the sub-region.
Collecting and sorting travelers' data at immigration control points, conducting interactive background checks based on biometric and documented verification, detected threats and risks associated with immigration and control security, analyzing and reporting security data for informed decision-making.
A member of the consortium, William Saul Lamin, said they will continue to engage government to incorporate the $25 airport tax to the ticket fares to best address the concerns of in- and outbound passengers and implementation of the local content policy by allowing local businesses to operate inside the airport. Security Port is working in close collaboration with the government through the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the Immigration Department to enhance the country's immigration control system. Ibrahim Samura, Freetown.
You're still watching news from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation in Freetown. We continue with more stories. Now, the Political Parties Regulation Commission, PPRC, has presented to the chairman of the Sierra Leone People's Party a report after some aggrieved members of the SLPP petitioned the party over the recent lower-level elections. Presenting the report to Dr. Prince Hardin, the leadership of the PPRC noted the need for fairness in inter-party elections. Cynthia Kama witnessed the presentation and her report.
Following the commencement of the SLPP lower-level elections on the 8th of February this year, some of the party members felt dissatisfied with the way the elections were conducted in 14 political districts in the country due to the dissatisfaction of the process alleged to be marred with irregularities. Some members of the SLPP in the respective 14 political districts filed petitions to the PPRC to look into the processes and procedures of the elections. Following the petitions on the 24th of February, the PPRC commenced hearings looking into the petitions of the petitioners and other parties, thereby addressing some unaddressed and unsatisfied issues received from 14 political districts in the country.
In Constituency 113, the results of the zonal elections held in Constituency 113 were upheld, and it is directed that the constituency proceeds their next level elections. In 116, directed that the elections in Constituency 116 be rerun, and the Commission shall schedule a date for such hearing. I'll just give you samples of what we've done. I'll go to Kenema district. In Constituency 011, it is directed that the sectional elections be rerun at Bole and Boro sections. That's in Constituency 011. In Constituency 013, it is directed that the chiefdom elections conducted be upheld, and that Constituency 013 proceeds with the constituency elections to the constituency elections.
On the process of implementing the directives of the report, Chairman of the PPRC stressed that the law meant what it was saying, as what they are doing are subject upon the provision of laws enacted by Parliament of Sierra Leone.
Democracy in itself, if it is upheld and followed to the letter, certainly good governance will just be an offshoot of it. So the real foundation from which good governance will commence is upholding the tenets of democracy. You may be a powerful muscle in your family, but if you hurt somebody who's a member of the family with the weakest muscle, that person must have his say by way of petition if you're taking it to the party level. So to that end, once people are given the opportunity to vent out what it is they are not comfortable with, what they believe breaches is a breach of what democracy is all about, certainly the foundation for good governance would have been laid.
The report was not just meant to reconstruct the SLPP's electoral processes, but to an extent rebranding good governance in the party.
Those laws can only be adhered to, otherwise there will be consequences. So ensuring that they happen is actually working with the party structures to fix out, to do the schedules and make sure that my staff are there to conduct the elections. And because the conduct of the elections will be in the hands of the PPRC, our staff will be in conduct of the elections to the exclusion of any member of the SLPP in those areas where the wrongs will be done.
Receiving the report, Chairman of the SLPP, Prince Alex Adin, expressed hope that the report will substantially reduce some anti-party activities, which will lead to a peaceful outcome in the party and governance as a whole. Cynthia Kama reporting for Slbc News.
Over the past few years, the Ministry of Health and its partners have been working to improve the quality of services for mental health and neurological disorders. As part of these efforts, the Ministry of Health, together with its development partners, has launched and inducted the Mental Health Champions Network in Sierra Leone. This network aims to advance mental health services and advocacy throughout the country, ensuring that mental health is prioritized and stigma is addressed at all levels of society. The network was launched by the Minister of Technical and Higher Education, Dr. Ramatulai Oye. Ibrahim Sanwa reports.
At this point, it gives me great pleasure, on behalf of the Honorable Vice President, to officially launch the Mental Health Champions Network.
These are the mental health champions, and they comprise non-mental health professionals passionate about mental health, having demonstrated commendable qualities in their personal, professional, and community engagement.
We need each other. 98% will be told of those who require mental health treatment do not get it. Only about 2% do. And I think the first thing we do is something which Reverend Duncan alluded to. But let me emphasize. We have an anachronistic law on mental health called the 1902 Lunacy Act. It's a terrible piece of legislation that does not belong to this era anywhere in the world. I understand that a draft has been prepared, but it is in stock at the law office for what I think is far too long. And I think we can make that appeal to the President to give it a certificate of urgency.
The head of Psychiatric Teaching Hospital, Dr. Abdul gave an overview of the network and said the mental health champions would be leading advocacy efforts, raising awareness, mobilize resources for mental health, and policies review, including the Absolute Lunacy Act of 1902.
We have gone through orientation wherein we went through the overview of mental health landscape in Sierra Leone, what the ministry is doing in terms of advancing mental health care in Sierra Leone, and what is who is the mental health champion, for them to know their roles, their responsibilities, their terms of reference, their mandates, and all those things we have gone through them. And also, they have been trained on basic mental health programs, like the mental health and psychosocial support, psychological first aid, anti-stigma, and advocacy.
Deputy Minister of Health 2, Dr. Jalikatu Mustafa, said providing mental health care was a priority to the Health Ministry, noting the establishment of the mental health champions would serve as an eye-opener to addressing mental health issues. Minister of Technical and Higher Education, Dr. Aja Ramatulai Wuri, said mental health remain unfunded and stigmatized, noting mental health was not only a health concern but development challenge. She noted that mental health victims should be treated with dignity and outlined several government efforts in providing mental health care.
The government of Sierra Leone has taken many decisive steps to make mental health a national priority. And these include, but they're not limited to, the renovation of the Sierra Leone Psychiatric Teaching Hospital, efforts to repeal the 1902 Lunacy Act, replacing it with a new mental health bill that upholds international human rights standards. And as we've heard from the Deputy Minister of Health, it's very close to making its way to Parliament, where we're confident that there will be no bottlenecks. The establishment of the Mental Health Presidential Task Force is also an achievement of the government to coordinate national efforts. The integration of mental health services into primary health care, making support more accessible at community level.
Speakers after speaker appreciated the move of establishing mental health network, stating mental health was cross-cutting issue, calling for concerted effort while underscoring the pivotal role of mental health champions. Ibrahim Samra, Freetown.
The Sierra Leone Council for Postgraduate Colleges of Health Specialties made an annual general and scientific meeting has ended at the Freetown City Council Auditorium on the theme Postgraduate Medical Education in Sierra Leone. The council is made up of physicians, surgeons, nurses, midwives, and pharmacists from postgraduate colleges in the country.
For the first time in the history of Sierra Leone, medical doctors, pharmacists, nurses, and midwives are trained in specialized medical fields and promoted in postgraduate studies to be deployed across the country. The chairman of the council, Professor Sir Moses Gevao, emphasized that the Council for Postgraduate Colleges of Health Specialties Act was enacted in 2016 to supervise and coordinate the training of postgraduate health specialists and to provide for other related matters. He said it is comprised of the 3 colleges for nursing and midwifery, physicians and surgeons, and the College of Pharmacy. He said these constituent colleges provided specialized medical training that will target the 7.9 million people of Sierra Leone with their motto, "Let knowledge conquer disease."
Primary examinations have been conducted in all the colleges. Currently, 122 residents have been registered with the 3 colleges for training in various specialties. College of Physicians and Surgeons, 74. Nursing and Midwifery, 37. And Pharmacy, 11.
The Deputy Minister of Health, too, Dr. Jalikatu Mustafa, cited that the establishment of these colleges is a commitment towards building their resilience and that these institutions are a pillar of excellence and achievement for the government and the people of Sierra Leone. She thanked the Council for their commitment in training medical professionals in contributing towards the country's healthcare delivery. Minister of Technical and Higher Education, Dr. Hajar Ramanatulai Wuri, commended representatives from Liberia, Ghana, and Nigeria for their contributions towards a sustainable collaboration in the health sector in the West African region. The meeting, she said, is a testament to their collective dedication in enhancing such initiatives on healthcare demand in the country. WHO representative in Sierra Leone, Dr. George Ame, emphasized the Council's achievements since its establishment and the role WHO has contributed to the health sector. He cited the SDGs Universal Health Care and the National Hospital Strategy, noting Sierra Leone is one of the countries undergoing the National Labor Market Analysis on the universal health coverage. He said they are presently working with the government on digital health by providing experts and assured the Council of their continuous support. Keynote speaker, Deputy Minister of Health 1, Minister of Health, Professor Charles Senesi, said that government is determined to empower the medical sector by providing evidence-based medical facilities and to improve medical infrastructure. He emphasized strong supply chain management, pointing out that they are committed to human capital development and extended his appreciation to the Sierra Leone Council for Postgraduate Colleges of Health Specialties for their relentless efforts in collaboration towards the knowledge base by fostering change in the medical sector.
Well, it's now time for our entertainment news.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the entertainment news. I am, of course, yours truly, Mariatu Dukro. Now, today on the headlines, it is all about the just winner. The person who just won the House of Stars Season 2, Lola Simeon. weeks ago, we saw the finale, the grand finale of the House of Stars Season 2, where Lolo Simeon and Watamomo were the last two standing, holding hands, waiting to be announced as the winner. And of course, by now, we all know that Lolo Simeon, who was a contestant of the Housemate Salon, won the House of Stars Season 2. So she is the winner of a brand new house, a car, and of course a cash prize, and she will be traveling all around the world. Now, today we had her in this exclusive.
Well, from the entertainment news, that's how we draw down the curtain down of this edition of news from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation in Freetown. Now, to end the news, the top stories again. President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, retired Dr. Julius Madabio, on Monday, the 17th March 2025, has relieved three prominent government figures from their positions. Inspector General of Police William Fayaselu has engaged stakeholders and police officers as part of his nationwide tour to popularize the transition from a police force to police service. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Timothy Kaba, and the Chinese ambassador to Sierra Leone, Wang Gwing, have launched the pilot land rehabilitation project in Tungu Community, Lua Bangbara Chiefdom, Kenema District. Well, that's all in this edition of the news from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation in Freetown. Thanks for watching, and do continue to stay tuned to the public broadcaster, the SLBC. More stories will pop up in our 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. editions of News Hour. Coming up next is Good Morning Sierra Leone. I'm Cecilia Alice to say goodbye.
Where use? You get use?
Yes, I get use.
This is the program where they give you the use where they happen all about the country.
Inside where use, we go take you text, Facebook and WhatsApp message. You complain where you go send as letter to the producer. We dey announce about team them working loss and plenty more.
We are there all about the country. But you self help for bring the use to your area.
Where use? The original program where they give you updates.
Where use? You get use?
Yes, I get use.
Discover Sierra Leone, a hidden gem of West Africa, where the rhythms of life dance in harmony with the beauty of nature.
Feel the heartbeat of our culture in every beat of the drum, in every step of the dance.
Experience the tranquility of our shores, where each sunrise brings new stories and endless possibilities.
Immerse yourself in the vibrant tapestry of our daily life, where every color tells a tale and every face a friend.
Come, be enchanted by the sights and sounds of Sierra Leone.
A place where your adventure awaits.
and memories are made.
والعدوان إلا على الظالمين والعاقبة للمتقين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على عبدك ورسولك محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. There is a discussion that exists in our tradition where the ulama, starting from the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would discuss what is arja ayah bi kitabillah, the most hopeful verse in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the beauty of this type of a discussion is that it's not something that is set in stone to where it has to be one verse, meaning different people will approach this question from a different vantage point. What gives you the most hope of the verses of the Quran? And so, for example, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma had a very interesting verse that he found to be the most hopeful. He mentioned the verse of Ibrahim alayhi salam saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ربي الذي يحيي ويميت أرني كيف تحيي الموتى قال أولم تؤمن قال بلى ولكن يطمئن قلبي. Where Ibrahim alayhi salam says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my Lord who gives life and who gives death, show me how you give life to the dead. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do you not believe? And he says, indeed, but so that my heart can be further at ease. Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, of course, narrated that we have more rights than Ibrahim alayhi salam to turn to our Lord with this request. Ibrahim alayhi salam was not questioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but rather he was saying so that my faith can be increased upon the faith that I already have. And so Ibn Abbas, being a scholar who found that his inquiry would always increase his iman, found this to be a hopeful verse in the Quran. Most of the scholars, they said that arja ayah bi kitabillah, the most hopeful verse in the book of Allah is what? Does anybody know? When you think of a hopeful verse, what verse comes to mind? Ayat al-Kursi, Surah al-Zumar. Ayat al-Kursi is the greatest verse. But the verse that most of the Sahaba and most of the scholars mention is the verse in Surah al-Zumar, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. Say, O my servants who have transgressed against themselves, do not despair from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indeed, Allah forgives all sins. Indeed, Allah is all forgiving and all merciful. And they call this the most hopeful verse in the Quran because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pinning His mercy to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala and not making it conditional upon your condition. Meaning what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He forgives all sins because He is Ghafoor Rahim. He is the forgiving one. He is the merciful one. Meaning if we were to depend on ourselves and our own restitution and rectification, then we would not sufficiently be able to bury ourselves to dig ourselves out of the holes that we bury ourselves in. We would not sufficiently be able to restore ourselves to our original being. Our sins would inevitably weigh us down. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He is the one who forgives all sins because He is Ghafoorun Rahim. And this is similar to how we will spend the last 10 nights of Ramadan should Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma ballighna Ramadan, may Allah azza wa jalla allow us to meet Ramadan and be forgiven. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to witness Laylatul Qadr. Allahumma ameen. When we will be saying in the last 10 nights, Allahumma innaka afuun kareemun tuhibbul afwa fa'afu anni. Or Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'afu anni. Oh Allah, you are al-afu. I start from that place that you are the one who loves to pardon. You are the one who loves to forgive, so forgive me. I'm not saying, oh Allah, I fasted 20 days, so forgive me. Oh Allah, I'm going to be praying the next 10 nights, so forgive me. I am pinning my forgiveness on His names and attributes of being forgiving and being pardoning. And this is a beautiful way to start the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because if you really think about it, من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. The very famous hadith that whoever fasts Ramadan with faith and accountability, seeking its reward, Allah will forgive him for all of his sins. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man qama laylatul qadr, imanan wa ihtisaban," and whoever stands up on the night of Laylatul Qadr, imanan wa ihtisaban, with faith and seeking the reward, Allah will forgive him for all of his sins. From a logical perspective, you tell me who you know in your life that would say, just work 1 month out of the year and I'll forgive you for the 11 months prior. In fact, just give me one good night and I will give you the reward of a lifetime. I'll pay you an entire salary for a lifetime. It doesn't exist. That type of mercy and forgiveness is incomprehensible to man, and it's important for us to not speak about the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the capacity of limited notions of human mercy. Divine mercy is different. And so this is the most hopeful ayah in the Quran to many of the scholars. And I want to start from this place, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, as we build into what other scholars consider to be the most hopeful verses in the Quran. The idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can restore you to a baseline. You see, when you start Ramadan and you set your expectations for yourself, the very first expectation is to be brought back to a baseline, to be brought back to a bare minimum. And that minimum is to be forgiven. That if there's anything that I want to attain this Ramadan, first and foremost, it's that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me for the sins that I have accumulated. That before I talk about the good things that I will earn, and before I talk about the habits, I start from this place, Allahumma khfirli. Oh Allah, forgive me for all of my sins. And I trust in Allah's ability to forgive despite my insistence upon sins that I said I would quit last year. Yet I fell back into them once again. It's a baseline, and it's an incredible baseline for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to get you to that. And it's not so hard to attain that level. As we know from the hadith in which Jibreel alayhi salam comes to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, khaba wa khasr, raghima anf, he has failed, he has lost, may he be humiliated and disgraced. Man adraka Ramadan, the one who comes into contact with Ramadan and he's not forgiven. Like, you have to do things to miss out on the baseline of forgiveness of this month. It's not incredible of a month of mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not make us of the deprived. Allahumma ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. And subhanAllah, there was a person who came to the worshipper Rabi' al-Adawiyya, rahimahullah, and he asked her, would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me despite all of the sins that I've committed in the past? And she said something very profound. She said, Allah calls you to him when you turn away from him. Do you really think Allah would not accept you when you turn towards him? Think about the logic there. Allah Azza wa Jal calls the sinners back to him no matter how far they have gone. So who are we to think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not accept the one who's then trying to draw near to him? And Allah's mercy is indeed incredible. Allah's forgiveness is indeed incredible and all-encompassing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant it to us all. Allahumma ameen. But there are other scholars who said, no, there are other ayat that are even more hopeful than this one. Some of them said it is innal hasanati yudhibna sayyi'at, that verily the good deeds do away with the sins. So you not only come back to a baseline, but you actually have yourself increased at the very beginning. Today there was a sister who embraced Islam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her after Salatul Jum'ah and keep her steadfast. Allahumma ameen. And I don't know if she's with us tonight, but her story was incredibly beautiful. She talked about being raised in the United States and then coming here and making these promises with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and just the thought that, by the way, when you embrace Islam, not only are you forgiven for that which came before, but you actually get a head start because the good that you have done will now be preserved for you. Couldn't believe it, subhanAllah. And really, like, you think about the narrations of the companions who came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they had to know that Allah forgave a person who killed 99 people and then went and asked if he could be forgiven, and then killed that person who said no and killed 100. Why? Because there were people that came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like Amr bin As radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who was afraid when he's taking his bay'ah to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but wait a minute, Ya Rasulullah, will I be forgiven for all that I did? Because some of them didn't just kill 100 people, some of them killed tens of Sahaba. Abu Sufyan killed over 100 companions cumulatively. If you take his body of work before becoming Muslim, think about how that ayah resonated, or that hadith resonated with them. So some of the scholars said, no, it's innal hasanati yuzhibna sayyi'at. And some of the scholars said there's something even greater than that, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ulaika yubaddilu Allahu sayyi'atihim hasanat. They are the ones who Allah takes their sins and turns them into good deeds. So not only are your sins forgiven, not only do your good deeds remain after Tawbah and your sins get left behind, but your sins actually get turned into good deeds when you seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's an immediate realization of that, and then there is a habitual realization of that, which is that sometimes your sinful habits, the sinful qualities that you have, can actually turn out to be your best qualities if you convert them into means of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes the same things that used to take you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now become the things that bring you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's one last ayah that I'll share to open this discussion. And then we'll get into this discussion about how to transform yourself in Ramadan. That there are some who said that the most hopeful ayah in the Quran to them is اعلموا أن الله يحيي الأرض بعد موتها. Know that Allah gives life to dead earth. Know that Allah produces out of barren lands. Why? This ayah is in Surah Al-Hadid, and of course part of it also, Surah Al-Rum, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن قُلُوبُهُمْ بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ وَلَا يَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلُ فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدُ فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَكَثِيرٌ مِنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ اعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يُحْيِي الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls the sinner back and says, isn't it time for those who believe to soften their hearts to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the truth that He has revealed, and do not be like the people of the book who came before you, who time passed from the initial point of reception and their hearts became hard, and many of them became wicked and evildoers. اعلموا أن الله يحيي الأرض بعد موتها. Know that Allah can give life to dead earth. What is Allah talking about? Is He talking about land, or is He talking about the hearts? That even a dead heart can be resuscitated and brought back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to use this as the beginning of a discussion of how to really transform yourself in Ramadan. Not just to attain forgiveness. We ask Allah for forgiveness, but to use Ramadan truly as a month of transformation to formulate a new version of you. And I'll tell you why. Many times when we talk about the new version of us, we fail to look into our various old versions. What do I mean by that? If you're thinking about how you can have the best Ramadan, the first place that you should start from is to think about the best Ramadan you've ever had in your life. Think back in all of your years. What's the best Ramadan that you ever had? Except for, of course, our brothers and sisters who just embraced Islam. What's the best Ramadan that you ever had? That Ramadan exposed a potential. You know, many people say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. I can't quit this habit. I can't quit that habit. It's like the smoker who says they can't quit smoking. But then Ramadan comes along and they fast from smoking, hopefully. They fast from smoking from the morning to the evening. Allah just showed you, you can abstain from your cigarette. You don't need to smoke your 2 packs a day. You know how to do this. Allah exposed your potential. Someone says, I don't know how to read this much Quran. You have a Ramadan in your memory. You have a time that you can look back on. You can say, that was the best Ramadan of my life. I read this much Quran that Ramadan. I don't know how to cry. You cried that Ramadan. I don't know how to worship long into the night beyond the Taraweeh prayer. You had at last 10 nights where you pushed yourself beyond what you thought you were capable of. Your previous Ramadans exposed so far what you know of your potential in Ramadan. So when you think about the type of Ramadan that you want to have, establish a baseline. The first baseline I want you to have is right now. I want you to think back to the best Ramadan you ever had. If there's a Ramadan in your life that you say, you know what, that was the one. If there's a last 10 nights in your life where you say, you know what, that was the one. Start from that place. There's your baseline. But of course, we're not just talking about having a great Ramadan, we're talking about having a great life. We're not just talking about having a transformative Ramadan for Ramadan, we're talking about having a transformative Ramadan for our entire lives. And so here's your baseline potential that you know so far. If you're looking to create a new version of you, look back at all of the old versions of you. And there are 3 ways to do that we learn from the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. Number 1, there's looking back at an older version of you that didn't have all of the accumulation of ni'am, of blessings that you have right now. When you used to be of more humble means, when you had less, when you were in perhaps financial desperation that you're not in right now. And if you're in that right now, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala see you through it. Or you didn't have a title next to your name, or you were a kid. You came from a humble place. And you can look back and you can remember that place. And that allows you to think of all of the blessings that you've accumulated, because being grateful for the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is of the greatest ways in which you draw close to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, for example, when Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu wanted to humble himself, what would he do? He'd put his head down and he would cry. And he would say, I remember when I was Umayr. They call me Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar ibn Khattab, the commander of the believers, Umar ibn Khattab. I remember when I was Umayr, little Umar, walking through the streets of Mecca, Ara'a ghanaman lil Khattab, and I used to raise the sheep of al-Khattab. And that's all I was, to put himself down. Don't think you're more than that, oh Umar. Remember who you actually were. Remember that Allah brought you to this place, because sometimes there's a direct correlation, ironically, between the accumulation of blessings and the corruption of character. What do I mean by that? You know, you got a little money in your pocket, and now bad service at a restaurant, you immediately puff your chest out and start to push people around. Your patience has waned because you're now a more respectable person. MashaAllah, you grew, Allah gave you some titles, Allah gave you a degree, Allah gave you some position. And now, when someone dares to offend you, do you know who I am? So the blessings that were supposed to make you humble and put you into sujood in terms of your worship and humble you in terms of your character somehow caused you to puff your chest out. It's counterintuitive. So remembering an old version of yourself means going back to the most humble version of yourself to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you know what's the most humble version of yourself? هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. Remember when you were not even remembered? Remember when no one even knew who you were? In fact, you didn't even exist. ألم يكن نطفة من مني يمنى. Remember then you became a drop of fluid? So remembering an old version of yourself is a direct way of humbling yourself so that you don't allow the accumulation of blessings that Ramadan is supposed to make you more aware of, a source of arrogance. But instead you let them be a source of humility. Go back to those old versions of yourself. Remember who you were. Remember what you were. Then there's a second version. The second version is remembering a sin that you committed in the past, or a sinful past that you had. And that sinful past becomes such a horrifying image of what you know that you can descend into that you never want to go back to it again. Today I mentioned in the khutbah the three signs of Iman. I just mentioned the first ones. Halawat al-Iman, the sweetness of faith. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that a person loves Allah and His Messenger more than anyone else. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The second one, that you love someone only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the people that you love and you hate only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for nothing else. And the third one is that you would hate to return back to your days of ignorance the way that a person would hate to be thrown into a fire. Meaning what? When you catch yourself slipping, you put up a version of yourself that was the worst version of yourself. And you say, A'udhu billah an akuna mithla hadha. I seek refuge in Allah from being like this, from going back to that, from being that person again. This too was Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who would remember the darkness of his jahiliyyah. And that was a direct reason for the light in his heart. His grandson, Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahimahullah, when the people would come to him and they would praise him for his adl, for his justice, he would remember one man that he felt like he wronged. And his name was Khubayb. And he would put his head down and cry and say, وَكَيْفَ بِخُبَيْبٍ? But what about Khubayb? All you people tell me, MashaAllah, justice, adl, you did this in the whole world, but I remember when I wronged a man named Khubayb. So sometimes, going back to an old version of yourself that's not pleasant, and putting that image up and saying, I never want to be that person again, so that when you start to smell like that old person, you go, uh-oh, a'udhu billah, I'm not going to be that person again. So when the Prophet ﷺ used to use that language, invoke that language, even on a community basis, don't go back to being kuffar, disbelievers, striking the necks of one another with swords. That invoked a particular ugliness. You remember who you were? Remember who you were so that you never want to be that person again. So again, the first way to look at an old version of yourself is to look at the humble means from which you came. The second way is to look at a version of yourself that you never want to be again and to use that as an image. To say, may Allah protect me from that. So if you start to smell like that again, you would hate to go back to being that person, like a person would hate to be thrown into a fire. And the third one is to actually go back to the times when you felt like you were a better version of yourself. Your best manifestations. For the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to look at their time with the Prophet ﷺ. And so you look at a person like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu. When a delegation from Yemen comes and he's the Khalifa, and they ask for the Quran to be recited to them. And when the Quran is recited to them, they started to cry. And he looks at them and he says, هَكَذَا كُنَّا. I remember one day when we were like that. I remember when we used to cry when the Quran was read. But then the hearts became hard. I remember those days. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu was the man who used to cry so much.
Discover Sierra Leone, a hidden gem of West Africa, where the rhythms of life dance in harmony with the beauty of nature.
Feel the heartbeat of our culture in every beat of the drum, in every step of the dance.
Experience the tranquility of our shores, where each sunrise brings new stories and endless possibilities.
Immerse yourself in the vibrant tapestry of our daily life, where every color tells a tale and every face a friend.
be enchanted by the sights and sounds of Sierra Leone.
A place where your adventure awaits.
And memories are made.
It's a bright and prosperous good morning. This is how we welcome you to your breakfast program, Good Morning Sierra Leone, reaching you live from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation television on channel 31. Of course, today happens to be Tuesday, 18th day in the month of March 2025. This program always starts your day with analysis and divergent of views on news and current affairs happens in the country. We are your presenters. I'm Dennis Fraser teaming up with.
I am Esther Sako. Our quote of the day is from an American poet, Maya Angelou, and it says, "We must encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated."
Certainly so. The moment you start feeling defeated, I think that's how you start getting off this world, and you should be thinking of eternity now, because life keeps bringing challenges, but it's all incumbent on you to see how best you surmount those challenges, because life in itself is not something easy, and we are never promised tomorrow. Sure. So coming up in the program, in the menu this morning, Produce Monitoring Board engages key stakeholders in produce value chain.
Hundreds of WASC candidates affected by the WAEC portal entry for WASC protests.
And PIFLA observes World Young Romantic Disease Day with the launch of a pediatric romantology clinic. We shall get to find out all these big medical jargons not too far from now. But at this point, we encourage you to be part of the program by sending your thoughts, comments, or suggestions to the number displayed on the screen, and that is 030-073-719. The number again is 030-073-719. It's the number to do so. Good morning, Sierra Leone returns shortly after this commercial break. Welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Sierra Leone, reaching you live from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation television on channel 31. It's now time for us to usher in our guests and start the discussion this morning. And for that, in the bid to produce solid connections between local and international exporters and importers on coffee and cocoa production in Sierra Leone, Executive Chairman, Police Monitoring Board, Raymond Carter, together with his Director of Operations, and Didan Sanko, after attending this year's third G25 Africa Coffee Summit with the theme Unlocking Employment Opportunities for Youth through Regeneration of the African Coffee Industry in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, has begun the engagement of key stakeholders in the produce value chain. Well, in the studio to talk more on this is no less a person than the Executive Chair himself, Raymond Carter. Good morning, Mr. Carter, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Certainly. And of course, let's start off with the engagement in Dar es Salaam, the G25 Coffee Summit. Start giving us a feel of it. What was the high point of this particular summit?
So, every 2 years, 25 countries in Africa that are leaders in coffee converge in one of the African nations to discuss coffee. So this year we met in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. It's called the G25 African Coffee Summit. It's a summit for leaders in the coffee sector, government officials, and key stakeholders in the value chain. So we met and discussed ways that we can unlock the potential of youth using coffee sector. So using our derivatives in coffee and using value addition and using produce volume as the way to bring youth into the coffee sector and create employment for them. But most importantly, we were able to reaffirm our commitment to coffee being a strategic commodity in the African Union. What that does is that it helps African nations to increase what we derive from coffee. So we are tired of being farms for European and other markets. We want our coffee to actually be critical in transforming us into vibrant economies. And how we'll do that is to add value to our coffee. So just growing the coffee and exporting does not really translate into the economic boost that we need. So we have decided as African nations that we will actually add value to our coffee and ensure that we are not selling raw beans. And also we wanted to use the coffee sector as a critical mechanism through which we will reduce youth unemployment and include youths into the coffee sector, by which we will also be increasing youth employment. So those were the key takeaways.
Okay, so as the new executive chairman of the Produce Marketing Board, you are part of the certain summit in Tanzania. How prepared is Sierra Leone to move with this trend, especially focusing on the theme unlocking employment opportunities for youth through regeneration of African coffee industry? How prepared is the country moving along with this theme?
Right. So first of all, part of the reason why I am doing these media engagements is that I'm trying to bring the Produce Monitoring Board to the citizens. And even you as my interviewer was calling me produce marketing. So we have been called many things over time because we are not engaging. So I'm happy that you make the mistake on TV, so I have the opportunity to correct and to serve as the imperative for these media engagements. So having said that, how prepared is Sierra Leone was the question. The theme of the summit, aligns very neatly with our feed salon, or the Big Fives. So the Big Five has as the third pillar youth employment scheme, and that is exactly what the summit was about, unlocking youth potential, etc. So also we have the feed salon, which is Sierra Leone trying to feed itself and be food sufficient, and that is part of what the theme was also. How can we as African nations not just be farms for European markets? How can we optimize the potential of our coffee sector and get optimal yield or derivatives from our coffee sector? And I believe that the 5 big changers are trying to do that. Also, we were trying to see how we can leverage technology.
Okay.
And all the themes of the big 5 game changers were actually literally mirrored in the summit. So I believe that Sierra Leone is way ahead of the curve because our thought processes and our development agenda are in line with these regional and international best practices. So if you take a sneak peek on the 5 big game changers, you will see that we are really doing exactly what the African nations are trying to do. We have a coffee policy. I had a meeting with the Minister of Agriculture on Friday. So we have coffee policy aimed at revamping the sector, aimed at ensuring that we are more competitive in the sector. Our produce volumes are low. How can we play catch up with international players to increase our produce volume? What can we do? Do we need to have improved varieties that will reduce the duration of production time so that we can play catch up? So we are not among the major producers of coffee in Africa. So what can we do to increase our produce volume? Whilst we are also not just trying to increase produce volume, but how can we also do that by ensuring that value addition is key, and how can we also use that to ensure that we include youths in the process, so by creating youth employment. And I believe we are doing all of those. So the theme of the summit really just aligns with things that we are doing here at home.
Now, Isi Monkoka, Kata, beg your pardon. In as much as, coffee is a very important cash crop to Sierra Leone. In fact, that's one particular agricultural produce that really brings significant economic benefits to Sierra Leone. It will also interest one to note, just as you already said, of course, this particular engagement you are now on, especially within the African region, could not have come at a better time than now, when the government itself is strategically positioning itself using the agricultural sector to really leverage on certain economic benefits and policies. But that all begs the question. The other day you also had your press briefing, part of media engagement, like you had put it, to really raise public awareness as around how you really want the work of the police monitoring board to resonate with members of the public. The part of that press briefing as well, you also catalog your objectives, your goals and objectives that are going to be set for the year 2025 and beyond. Can you really now expand a bit on that?
Right. So in that press briefing, I tried to interact with the media and try to share some of the good work that we've been doing. Apart from the engagement in Tanzania on coffee, there was also another engagement in Amsterdam on cocoa. And in Amsterdam, what we were trying to do is we converged both those on the consuming countries and us from the producing countries, and all stakeholders in the value chain. What we were trying to do was to see how producing countries like Sierra Leone will discuss in a frank way with those that are consuming countries on what are the challenges our farmers are facing.
Okay.
What are the potentials? How can we be fair to producing countries? How can we ensure that farmers' incomes are enhanced? So we had those discussions, and I was on one of the panels that has to do with aligning farmer income. And part of what we said was that we believe that we should be supported with our produce volumes.
Okay.
How can that happen? How can the producing countries ensure that we are not just, again, like what they said in Tanzania, we are not just farms, but how can our produce really translate into income for farmers? How can it translate into the farmers having a real sustainable way of living in the communities? And those were part of the conversations we had, and we agreed on some key things, like if you are a consuming country and you say, for instance, you want to bring EUDR, which is the European Union Deforestation Regulation, to countries like Sierra Leone, how can you think around the cost implications of implementing that? How do you not just want us to implement regulations, but how can you support us, be it financially or technically, on that? So what I was able to do was, whilst in Amsterdam, I was able to lobby for us to have a consortium with Fair Foods Netherlands, Solidaridad Netherlands, and Solidaridad West Africa, and PMB. And PMB is actually now leading that consortium. And what I'm trying to do also is for the EUDR Secretariat to be housed in PMB. So I want us to play host to the EUDR Secretariat.
Okay.
So we have a consortium proposal now that I discussed with the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, and I'll be discussing with the Honorable Minister of Trade and Industry. What I've told them is, let's rescope the concept to see how, in fact, PMB will host the Mano River Union EUDR Secretariat.
So just before we move to another issue, Mr. Carter, part of leveraging on the coffee market, how have you been as well engaging with farmers and potential investors to really bridge that kind of a gap? Because, you talk about consuming countries, you export to them. How can the dividend be coming so that really, bring the economic benefits that we are yearning towards achieving in the not too distant future?
So my engagement has been across the entire value chain, across the spectrum. So I have engaged cooperatives. So in Kono, I engaged 3 leading cooperatives.
Okay.
I'm trying to know what their challenges were and trying to co-design solutions. And part of their challenges naturally was access to finance and
that's a big challenge.
And technical support on cooperative governance and stuff. So we have come back and we are developing concepts around that. I've engaged exporters, so TAS, Capital Foods, Randlin Holdings, and FTSAD to do what their issues are. Their issues were different. So you have organizations for farmers, but you don't have organization for exporters because they are not seeing themselves as team players. So we are trying to see how we can help them to align and collaborate so that they will be able so ensure that we support farmers. I've engaged the Chinese ambassador on ways that we can work with farmers and ways that we can support farmers. He was very happy to have me, and he's very happy to work with PMB along some of those issues. So what I've tried to do is that I've tried to engage everyone in the value chain, and so that we will be able to address the different needs, the nuanced perspectives each person will have.
Okay, many thanks there to you, Gemon Carter, the Executive Chairman for Produce Marketing Monitoring Board, as he has been taking us to the G25 African Coffee Summit and its various interventions in the coffee sector. Right from there, we'll move on to another issue, as hundreds of school pupils affected by the West African examinations portal entry for WASP have protested as they were unable to meet the deadline, which was February. The examinations are to be conducted in June this year. Since November 2024, the MBSS, the Ministry, and the WAEC have been calling on schools to ensure they meet the deadline by uploading the CAS and VRS of candidates. In the studios, we have the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Conrad Saki, as he is here to take us through this issue. Good morning and welcome to the program, Mr. Minister.
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers.
As the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, I'm quite sure you're aware of the protests going around social media by these certain pupils that are not to take the WASP exam. What signal does that send?
Well, I think in a sense, it's not a good signal. I would accept that. But I think in a sense, this is something that we need to deal with, and we need to deal with very decisively. For a pretty long time, we have had challenges with school leaders uploading the continuous assessment grades for their pupils. And this year, we have the same situation. The difference is that this year, very, very clear in my mind that we need to tackle this, and those school leaders will be dealt with.
So where does the challenge lies with regards to this CAS? Because year in, year out, we have these challenges with the schools, the CAS, because we are quite aware there have been engagements by the ministry and also CSOs with regard to this CAS. So as the minister, what actually is the challenge with regards to this CAS? Have you been engaging these schools?
Of course, we have been. But let me just set a context. So with the WASP exams, 30% of the grades come from continuous assessment grades. In the past, what used to happen is that someone doing the WASP exam will have to submit one continuous assessment grade for that person over the 3 years that they've been in senior secondary school. That situation changed last year when Sierra Leone joined the other 5 West African countries who are conducting WASP to actually have an annual upload. Now, the way it works is that in the first year of senior secondary school, the schools need to upload their CAS grade for that year and collect the bio data of their students. That gives them access to the system. In the second year at SS2, they need to upload the continuous assessment grade for that year, and then in the third year, they need to do 2 things. They need to upload the WASP, the grades for year 3, and register the candidates. So 892 schools in the country successfully uploaded their CAS grades. So I want to make sure that I use this opportunity to recognize those school heads and to thank them for doing a diligent job and for conforming with the policies and comply with the regulations. There are a few schools, however, who had some challenges. Now, and this is where the problem starts. As part of the process, when they want to upload onto the system, the ministry checks the eligibility of candidates. So the 2023 Act actually states that for you to take WASP, you need to have passed BECE. So that is something that the ministry will check. To make sure that the system is sufficient, we are now using an AI application to help us to do that check. And we can turn around the whole thing within maximum 3 days. Yes? Having said that, some schools, even though they had approval, somehow did not upload their students onto the CAS. And without that, they can't take the exams.
Now, Minister Saki, it is not gainsaying that, of course, the ministry year in, year out have been has been really been engaging with school authorities to really see our best. I mean, there's no repeat of these ugly incidents like we saw just in the year 2024 last year, when over 1,000 of students of PVs couldn't take the WAS exam, not until the intervention of the ministry that government had to ensure that they were able to go to the private exam. But the question I wanted to put forward to you as a minister, in as much as the Teaching Service Commission was also tasked with the mandates the other time to really see how best they can take action against some of the school authorities. What measure do you think is going to be put in place to forestall such an occurrence of this kind of ugly incidents that we are seeing?
Well, I think we have to be decisive. Okay. We talk about leadership, we talk about management, but there's a third aspect to those two concepts, and that is accountability. The accountability aspect has been weak, and we are strengthening that. So for those school leaders who did not upload their CAS 2, for example, I have made sure that those school leaders have been suspended for 6 months without salaries. Okay. Now for CAS 1, it is even more serious. And so we will go through a due process, but they will be sanctioned as a result of doing that. We cannot gamble with the lives of our young people. They have a right to education. I totally understand that, and I want to take this opportunity to apologize to our young people for finding themselves in that position. I am going to make sure that we are working on a package right now to make sure that we can respond positively to this situation. And once we've got that, I will come back to the public and make sure that we tell the public what we have done to make sure we address the needs of our young people. But there are a number of measures that are being taken in the ministry to address some of these. So let me just name a couple. First of all, we've just done an internal audit of our approval process to make sure that it is fit for purpose. Second, we have a set of guidelines which we'll share with the public and with school leaders. Third, where school leaders are found to be wanting, we will deal with them, yes. And fifth, we have now used technology to enhance the process. And this is why you're seeing all of the issues that are coming up, because with technology, we can identify these issues as soon as possible.
In as much as you're thinking of bringing on board AI, the utilization of AI, which is, the current trend, we almost agree to that. The minister has spent a lot of resources, training the school authorities, heads of institutions to really see our best. This thing could have been a challenge, so far as, uploading BRS or CAS 1 or 2 is concerned. Now that you are planning to take stringent action to really nip it at the board, that there is no, repeat of such an incidents. Where do you think the buck stop? Who is really going to be feeling the brunt first?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I think it's the young people. It's the young people. That's why we're taking the actions that we are taking. You know, we can sanction these school leaders, but these young people, it's their lives that we're dealing with. And that's why I've apologized for the situation we found themselves. But let me say this. We have just gone through a process to upload all the details and the data for NPSC and for Beke. Now, with NPSC, we had 5,141 schools. With Beke, we have 1,984 schools, giving a grand total of 7,125 schools. We had no problems. So if we say that the problem is a lack of capacity, how did we get the capacity to do 7,000? And we don't have the capacity to do 900? It doesn't make sense. But let me give you an example. In one of the grade 8 schools in Freetown, they submitted 3 batches of candidates. 3 batches were approved. And yet still their students are not on that database. And when you ask why that is, they tell you that they were waiting for students who are not attending to come back to school and confirm their details. How can you play with the lives of the ones that are attending? in order to meet those who are not attending.
And that's the ineptitude that is going to be met with stiff resistance.
But this, which one?
I said that's the ineptitude that is going to be met with stiff resistance.
Well, of course. This is the problem. So in overseas universities, if you do not have 80% attendance, you do not take the exams. And in some of those universities, they have foreign students who are paying thousands of pounds. But if you do not meet that 80% requirement, you do not take the exams.
Okay.
So these are the problems that we have. People are also abusing the system. They think it's a business. And therefore they're trying to get people who are not eligible for the exams to get them through the back door. And the reason why they're doing that is because 2 years ago, we decided to repeal the repeaters policy. And so most of the people that they're trying to get into the system are those who are coming through the back door.
Okay.
Okay. So, Mr. Minister, before we leave you, as you mentioned, these young people, these young pupils, their futures are at stake with regards to the West. So, as the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, in the way of assurance, how would you assure these young people that the ministry will take the measures in place to ensure that they are included, if there are any chances that they might be included in the West exam?
The chances of being included, I have to be brutally honest.
Okay.
The chances of being included in the May exams is very slim, if not non-existent.
Okay.
But there is another chance. You can have the private pass, but for that I need to do a little bit more work, which I'm trying to do behind the scenes. In order to get to that point, so I cannot make that commitment without having the endorsement of the Minister of Finance and other people. But if we're going down that route, what I am thinking of is to make sure that we repurpose our existing budget to make sure that we meet that cost within our existing budget, so that it's not an additional cost to the state. But it is something that we are working on as a proposal. We have to look at all options that are available to us. Having said that, I have had a couple of young people who do not want to take the private WAS exams. The question when I've asked questions about it,
and it's the same syllabus.
It's the same syllabus. It gives you the same access to the same universities. One of the young people said that, well, I will have to take the exams with adults. That is currently happening. It's just that the adults that you're taking the exams with, they wear uniforms. Yes, and also think about what happens when you go to university. I was at university with one of my teachers, my secondary school teacher. You will be in classes with adults. So really that should not stop you. It's your right. If that is offered, then it's something I really want the young people to take. And one of the other things I'm going to try to do is to analyze the results of those who took the private WAS last year, to give them comfort.
Mr. just before we go for a break now in the program, do you feel disappointed that parents couldn't rise up to the occasion? Because we have civil society organizations calling on parents to go and engage with schools authorities to be monitoring, to ensure that their kids' details are in these portals. Many of these parents we are engaging in this particular detail. Do you feel disappointed?
I think, look, the parents are not a homogeneous group.
Okay.
There are educated parents who will understand all of this. There are illiterate parents that will not understand. So we have a duty to inform these parents. It is for that reason that this year I decided to even have messages in 4 national languages, just to engage those parents and every parent. But I think we will take it further. We'll make sure that we get to marketplaces and we engage civil society.
Yeah, we have civil society organizations going to these marketplaces.
Exactly. We engage civil society organizations to make sure that we engage parents so that they could engage their schools in some of these things.
So don't you think they too have a role to play?
They do have a role to play. They definitely have a role to play, and we are looking as a ministry to set up an engagement strategy with parents.
Okay, many thanks there to the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Conrad Saki, as he has been taking us to, as we all know, hundreds of school pupils were affected by DCA's worst end reporter, as he has been taking us through their steps to ensure that is addressed. Well, viewers, the program you're watching is Good Morning Sierra Leone live on the SLBC, and you can be part of the program by sending your comments on our Facebook page at SLBC Live, or send your messages to the number displayed on your screen. We'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we continue with the program. Stay with us.
As a mother of the house, whenever I want to prepare palm soup, there's no need pounding palm fruit. All I need is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. My soup is done, and its preparation, it is not difficult at all. Nkulenu palm soup base, it's easily done with no difficulties. Just take few ladles and your soup is done. And its flavor, it's amazing. This is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. And this is Nkulenu's Ghana's original spiced palm soup base. Iron fruit and turkey berries are naturally added.
Also available Brown Gold Natural Cocoa Powder, Sunny Gold Brown Sugar, Neat Fufu Flour, Shito, Pisa, and Moringa. All available at Nyami Ado Enterprise, 1 Lower Waterloo Street, Freetown.
Nkulenu palm soup base.
Ghanaian original taste.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. The program you're watching is Good Morning Sierra Leone, reaching you live on the SLBC. We now turn our attention to the issue in the program, and now that's bodying around Earth. Today, 18th March, 5 is globally commemorated to World Young Romantic Disease Day. It is a day set aside annually to raise awareness about pediatric romantic diseases globally, according to health providers. Since they started awareness raising about pediatric romantic conditions in the country some 18 months ago, well, there has been an exponential increase in the rate of identifying children with the disease in the country. And as part of the day, PAFLA, in collaboration with SLMDA, we launched a pediatric rheumatology clinic and organized the first ever training for health workers on identification and management of pediatric romantic diseases. Well, in the studio to talk more on this, we've been joined by Dr. Saboyi. He is a specialist pediatrician at the Olajuwon Children's Hospital of PCMH. Good morning, Dr. Boyi, and welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
It is a pleasure to have you on the show, as today is globally commemorated as World Young Romantic Diseases Day. Part of the awareness raising on this particular health hazard, what more can you tell us about this disease?
Yeah, so
medical condition, if you like.
Yeah, so when we talk about rheumatic diseases, we are talking, of diseases that affect almost every part of the body, but particularly so the joints, the skin, the bones, and some other organs too. So, in the past, they used to believe that rheumatic diseases did not affect children. It was mainly adults that are being affected.
You call it granny sick.
Yes, but now we've seen that rheumatic diseases also seen in children. In fact, it can occur in children as slow as 1 year, or less than a year of age. And it's actually a growing disease body because it's one of the chronic disease conditions that we see. They cannot be cured, but they can have long-lasting control, with appropriate treatment. So really, we are celebrating today. We are commemorating this day because we want to raise awareness with regards, rheumatic diseases in children.
So how alarming is this condition in the country? If you were to rate, how alarming is it?
I would say since we've launched, so let me just take it from when we launched our PAFLA, the organization PAFLA, which is Pediatric Society of the African League Against Romanticism, in 2022. Since that time, before the launch of that organization, you know, there was not much awareness. We are not having patients really that were, you know, being managed or being suspected of having rheumatic diseases. But since that time up until now, we've had more than 30 patients, you know, that have been referred to us from all over the country, you know, and even within Freetown too, that is suspect of having this disease condition, you know. So we don't have figures for Sierra Leone, but projecting global figures, you know, to our local context, we estimate that around 600, you know, children less than 15 years, you know, in Sierra Leone would be living with this disease condition.
Now, Dr. Boni, just as you stated, public awareness around this particular medical condition is really low. I mean, part of your efforts as well is to set up a pediatric rheumatology clinic. How will all of this span out in raising the awareness of members of the public on this very dangerous health condition?
Yes, so today, in a few minutes, you know, if you will, from now, would launch the first ever pediatric rheumatology clinic in Sierra Leone at the Oladurun Children's Hospital in Cottage, Frobe Road. So this is, you know, because we want to, you know, have a good follow-up for these patients, you know, and properly align their treatment, you know, according to international best standard practices. So we are also, apart from what we are going to launch today, in about a week from now, we are also doing the first ever training for healthcare workers primarily, you know, with regards how to identify and how to manage, you know, local common pediatric rheumatic disease conditions. So, you know, with that training, we are hoping to spread the message wide, you know, so that people will be more aware and the index of suspicion really go up, you know, when they see patients, you know.
So are there like signs and symptoms to tell that this child is suffering from this rheumatic disease?
Yes, so just like any other disease, there are signs and symptoms. However, it's important to note that the signs and symptoms are non-specific. In other words, you can also see them in other disease conditions. But however, when we say rheumatic conditions, one of the most common type of rheumatic condition is what we call JIA, juvenile idiopathic arthritis. So when we talk of arthritis, we're talking of pain, swelling to the joints. You know, so there is pain, there is swelling of the joints.
And many people believe that is associated with older adults.
And they call it Granisi.
Yes, so that used to be the belief, but we are seeing now that just from what I mentioned, you know, we have an increasing patients that are coming in, you know, that have this disease condition. So they can present like that with pain. They can also present sometimes with skin rashes because, as I said, it affects the skin. Okay. So for the pain, you will see, especially in small children that are, you know, that cannot communicate. You can't tell, you know, they are not able to tell you whether they have pain. Okay. But of course, if you see the swelling, you notice that also the activity, you know, they are not as active as they used to before. Okay. You know, the child that was previously walking around will no longer be able to walk, you know. Sometimes the child will be excessively tired, and sometimes there is stiffness of the joint. And in fact, the stiffness that you see in rheumatology conditions is usually worse in the morning, but then as the day progresses, it gets better. These are some of the things. They can have fever, also are some of the features, especially persistent fever that is not responding to treatment for the common, you know, conditions that cause fever.
All right, Doc, earlier on you made a very disturbing revelation that, of course, romantic diseases are uncurable, and of course, the saying goes that early detection saves life, and of course, prevention is always better than cure. How can one prevent himself from a medical condition as this one?
Yes, thank you very much. So, when it comes to the prevention, you know, let's talk about the cause. You know, if you know the cause of something, then at least you have an idea of how to prevent it, you know. Largely, the cause of rheumatic diseases are not known. Okay. We don't know them. but we have factors that contribute to them. We have what we call genetic factors. So there are certain genes in the body, you know, in which some mutations may occur, and those mutations will be predisposing factors for children or adults, you know, to develop rheumatic disease conditions. So those ones, you know, they are unmodifiable factors. We cannot change them, you know. But there are other things too. So a study was done in Sweden, which showed that there is increased risk of children that are, you know, children who receive antibiotic before the age of 3 years have an increased risk of developing arthritis, you know, later on in life. So, you know, so that also brings to call the antibiotic stewardship that we are talking about. So it doesn't only lead to resistance, but also can predispose patients to certain disease conditions, including arthritis. So really, what we want to do is what we want to do is to in treating them really, or in preventing the disease, to how to help them to get a near normal life, you know. So it's a multidisciplinary approach to their management. It's not only us as clinicians, we also need psychosocial support, physiotherapists, you know, to help them get in near normal life. And high index of suspicion is very key, because when we suspect it's, you know, early and then initiate treatment, you know, they can have, you know, you can reduce the long-lasting damages to the joints or to the body parts.
Okay, Dr. Barry, before we leave you, how much of engagement do you do with these parents? Because you made mention that if you give a child antibiotic before 3 days, there's every possibility that the child can develop this rheumatic disease. How much of engagement do you do with these parents when they come to the hospitals with their children?
Yes, so we do engagement with parents, you know. I would say we do quite a lot of engagement with parents, but not specifically on arthritis, you know. But now that we know, we have an idea that, you know, too much antibiotic, especially in the young age, causes that. We want to continue to spread that message. So yes, so today we are going to have parents coming in with their children, launch it officially, and we continue to spread the message, you know, as we go on.
Continue to stay to us in the program, Dr. Bori from PAFLA, in the studio, telling us about rheumatic diseases and medical conditions around it, and of course what they are putting in place to really surmount those medical challenges. But the program is Good Morning Sierra, reaching you live on the SLBC. We still have in the studio the executive chairman of Police Monitoring Board, who is Raymond Carter. Mr. Carter, over to you again. Of course, you've been silent for a while. You started off by telling us your interaction with exporters of cocoa and coffee in the country. We want you to let's narrow down now on cocoa producers and exporters. How have you been using, like you made mention with your engagement in Dar es Salaam and of course other parts of the world, how have you been engaged with investors, potential investors in the sector of the cocoa sector, to see how best we can have factories and we can have other products coming from the cocoa produce itself, and to see how best that is all expanding on the value chain in the country.
Yes, thank you very much. That's why I've said that engaging across the value chain, and I'm trying to strengthen partnerships. So I have a meeting this week with the executive director for the National Investment Board.
Okay.
So that we'll synergize and align efforts around our mandates, and they are really those that are in charge of export promotion and attraction. So I want us to discuss, and I have received an invite to be part of some expo in Russia, and I think we will be going to the Japan Osaka Expo with the Ministry of Trade. So those are efforts at marketing Sierra Leone's commodities in the international space. For engagements with exporters, I have had extensive engagements with exporters, yes, and we are co-designing solutions to the issues they have, like the risk of paying huge amounts of money over the counter to farmers.
Okay.
Sometimes they will be paying out up to 6 billion, 8 billion at a time, and they think that that's a risk for them.
Okay.
So they are looking at how can we shift the paradigm from over-the-counter payments to using e-money systems, for instance. So discussions around probably having cocoa money or coffee money or one of those monies. How can we do that?
Innovation.
So, yes. So I'm trying to engage the bank governor, and I've started talking to the deputy managing directors or managing directors of different banks on how can we innovate around going virtual.
Okay, many thanks there. To you, Lemon Carter, the executive chairman for Produce Monitoring Board. Well, quickly we'll go over to the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. Before we leave you, Mr. Minister, should there be any expectation from these parents and pupils? Should they expect anything good?
And I'm sure they might. They are in a very high expectancy.
They would want to hear this part.
Well, I think in a sense we are working on something. I have to make sure that I get the necessary clearance before I can make an announcement. So what I did with a couple of kids who came to see me yesterday in my office, I made a commitment that by the end of this week I should be able to give them a definitive idea. But I have presented some options, some proposals of how we can deal with the situation.
Mr. Minister, do you see a quick fix to this particular situation whereby we have only lots of pupils that have been left out?
Well, I think the idea is to make sure that they take an exam that will get them into university. That's what we're trying to do, and that's what we're working on. I don't think they should be disadvantaged by the experience that they've had. So I have to apologize to them once more for all the emotional stress that they would have had going through this process, and we will try as best as possible to make sure that we respond to them as we did last year.
Thank you very much for the pleasure of your company in our studio this morning and for hosting you as our guest this morning. And we look forward, of course, the SLBC is looking forward to be having you more often than we've used to get you on the program to speak on a lot of issues. We couldn't talk about other interventions by the minister in other areas, but in subsequent editions, of course, we will have you on that. Thank you very much for being part of the program. Well, we now move on to another segment in the program, which is to quickly go through the front pages of our local tabloid. For that, I start with the Standard Times newspaper. It opens with a banner headline: Argentinian investor duped 400,000 United States dollars. Ismail El Abouti implicated. We will rebrand and market Carrefour Bloom. Our stories you can find on the front page of Standard Times newspaper. And that brings us to the end of that.
Okay, my first speak here this morning is our newspaper, and its banner headline says, Guinean and Sierra Leone volunteers reflect on their journey abroad global mastership. Sierra Leone to host 3rd African High-Level Forum on South-to-South Cooperation. EPA secures $12.5 million in new funding for ongoing and future projects. For many more stories, going for the Auko newspaper.
To boost production and employment, VP Jallo visits Sunbird Bioenergy. This is according to New Vision newspaper. Another headline story is for Sierra Leone's environment forest forum to attract major investment. To go with our story is a portrait of the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Minister Jiro Abdullahi. Our stories you can find on the front page of the New Vision newspaper.
My next speaker is the Independent Observer, and its banner headline says, Mr. President, can we talk? Part 120. Bio on the West Tokolili, and there's a portrait of the President. SLRSA Executive Director addresses road safety corps. These stories and many more you can find in Independent Observer newspaper.
My final pick for today's newspaper, EV's Network newspaper, is open to the banner headline: President envoy swindles investor over 300,000 United States dollars. Is Fatima bill above the law? Is a question on the Network newspaper. By Mahmoud organizes annual iftar for Muslims at City Hall. Our stories you can find on the front page of Network newspaper, which happens to my final newspaper.
My final pick is the OIV newspaper, and its banner headline says, Agreement for National Unity, APC urges governments to implement resolution. President Bill sacks 3 top state officials, and RC Bank applauded for apprehending culprits in fraud attempts. Well, viewers, we must quickly note that these headlines read out does not reflect the views of the SLBC, but of the various newspapers that we have read out.
Right, so quickly over to ES. As we close in less than 5 seconds, can you tell us what are some of the revenue generation strategies you've been putting in place to really scale up the police monitoring board?
Thank you very much. Yes, we have really tried to improve on our revenue generation, and what I've tried to do is go to the border crossing areas across the country and see how we can deploy additional staff, and see how we can use some mechanisms to increase accountability. I'm happy to report that just in January alone, we've generated 8.5 billion, almost 8.6 billion.
That's whooping.
Which is, when you compare that from January of last year, we just generated 3.2 billion.
Right.
So in February, we've generated almost 4 billion compared to 8.5 billion last year.
Right.
So we have already really had a 73% revenue generation increase in January and a 78% revenue generation increase in February, and the trajectory is positive.
All right. Thanks very much for the impressive update. He is the executive chairperson for the Police Monitoring Board, and he is Raymond Carter. Quickly over to you, Dr. Bonnie. We're closing the program. What should patients look forward to? As you engage them in your public engagement study.
30 seconds.
Yes, thank you very much. So the message we want to pass out is for our viewers to be hopeful that finally, we can do something, we can have a more comprehensive approach to the care of children with rheumatic diseases in Sierra Leone. Thank you.
Okay, well, from there, that's how we draw the curtains of Good Morning Sierra Leone. It came to you from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. Many thanks to the production crew, especially our producer, Daphne Zainab Kamar. Big Esther Sako.
And I'm Dennis Fraser. Before we go, a reminder of our quote of the day. It came from an American poet, Maya Angelou, and it says, "We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated." And that certainly, as always, a food for thought. Good Morning Sierra Leone returns tomorrow, but we live in the safe hands of our health tip as we were discussing on health issues today. Good morning.
Urinary tract infections are extremely common, but if left untreated, these common bacterial infections could spread to your kidneys and cause long-term damage. Here are 6 warning signs you may be dealing with a UTI. Number 1, you have a frequent urge to pee. A UTI can affect different parts of your urinary system, like your urethra, ureters, or the tubes that carry pee from your kidneys to your bladder, and the lining of your bladder. These can become irritated because of your body's inflammatory response to the introduction of bacteria or other microorganisms that have entered your urinary system. This inflammation makes you feel like you need to pee often, even if you just went to the bathroom. Number 2, you have difficulty peeing. When you experience an increased urge to pee, you may only be able to squeeze out 2 or 3 drops, and at times, nothing at all. This happens because inflammation causes your urethra to swell and may also cause weakness in your bladder, leading to decreased urination or occasional urinary leakage. Number 3, it hurts to pee. This is the most common symptom of a UTI and one of the earliest signs. When you pee, you might experience a burning sensation, a feeling of pins and needles, or a subtle pinching in your urethra that comes and goes whenever you urinate. Number 4, your pee is bloody or cloudy and has a foul odor. Urine can appear cloudy because of the presence of blood, discharge, or a buildup of the white blood cells that are helping your body to fight the infection. Your urine may also smell more foul than usual because of the bacteria that are present. Number 5, you have severe cramps or pain in your sides, abdomen, pelvis, or lower back As the UTI moves up towards your kidneys, you might experience cramping or severe shocks of pain on one or both sides of your body, your abdomen, pelvis, and lower back. Number 6, you have a fever, chills, nausea or vomiting, and/or extreme fatigue or confusion. Like the cramps associated with a kidney infection, these are all signs of a more severe infection and require immediate attention to reduce any potential damage or scarring to your kidneys. UTIs, though common, should never linger long. Knowing the signs and seeking medical attention right away, especially if you have frequent or recurring UTIs, are an important step in making sure you protect your kidneys and the health of your urinary system for the long term.
As a mother of the house, whenever I want to prepare palm soup, there's no need pounding palm fruit. All I need is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. My soup is done, and its preparation, it is not difficult at all. Nkulenu palm soup base, it's easily done with no difficulties. Just take few ladles and your soup is done. And its flavor, it's amazing. This is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. And this is Nkulenu's Ghana's original spiced palm soup base. Iron fruit and turkey berries are naturally added.
Also available brown gold natural cocoa powder, sunny gold brown sugar, neat fufu flour, shito, pisa, and moringa. All available at Nyami Ado Enterprise, 1 Lower Waterloo Street, Freetown.
Nkulenu palm soup base.
Ghanaian original taste.
Love
Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation Television on Channel 31. This is News Brief with me, Dennis Fraser. President Julius Maada Bio has on Monday 17th March 2025 relieved 3 prominent government figures from their positions. The event was followed by a public notice from the Office of the President through the Secretary to President, Dr. Emmanuel Kenema. Those relieved from their duties included Mr. Mohamed Oman Bangura, who was serving as Minister of Youth Affairs, Mr. Moriba Koroma, who was serving as Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs, and Mr. Ahmed Sibom Kanu, who was serving as Director of Sierra Leone National Shipping Agency. Women have taken upon themselves to propagate the values of Islam through the Quran in a bid to motivate Muslims to recite the Quran during Ramadan. Taqwa Islamic Sisters organization held its 6th female annual Quranic competition at Deep Eye Water Community. Meant to imbibe in young girls the culture of memorizing the Quran, the organization held its competition for girls on different chapters of the Holy Quran in the month of Ramadan, when Allah sent the Quran as a form of guidance to mankind. The winners of the various categories were provided with gifts to motivate them to do more, including the winner of the highest category of 10 Jusu, awarded to 11-year-old Fatmata bint Jallo. According to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Jiro Abdullahi, the ministry is set to play a pivotal role in an upcoming environmental conference focused on climate change. Minister Abdullahi highlighted the ministry's active engagement in addressing pressing climate and environmental issues that are critical to the nation's future. In an interview with the SLBC, Joe Abdullahi highlighted the urgent need to protect Sierra Leone's natural assets, underscoring the significance for ensuring both water and food security. Looking ahead, Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Joe Abdullahi, outlined a long-term vision for environmental sustainability in Sierra Leone, which involves an integration approach. He stressed the need to build on the achievement of the past, while setting ambitious goals for the next 10 to 30 years. And finally, former Minister of Youth Affairs, Mohamed Oman Bangura, has hosted the 2025 BNB Annual Iftar Conference under the theme Unite in Faith for a Better Future. The event, hosted at City Hall, provided a platform for Muslims within the APC party to pray for the nation's progress and peace. Addressing the gathering, former Minister of Youth Affairs, Honorable Bai Mahmoud Bangura, highlighted the importance of unity in faith as a foundation for success. He described the annual Iftar conference as a moment for party members to come together, share common goals, and seek divine blessings during the sacred month of Ramadan. And that brings us to the end of News Hour, which came to you from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation Television. Keep watching.
You ready for the Zoom meeting today with the investor them?
Yes, boss. I'm ready for the meeting today. And I don't download all the reports they sent to me on the internet.
Make sure so you get super connection, because I don't want one problem during the meeting.
Everything is okay. Everything is fine.
Counting on you, even though we're not in the same office. I will be with you every step of the way.
As mama, I always want waiting best for me picking them, especially when it comes up waiting them for eat and drink. Now this make I always they choose Sierra juice because they make come from with local foods them and nutritious and it gets less sugar than the other drinks them. Not to me say so.
We lab test show say Sierra juice gets 50% less sugar than the other drinks them na the market.
Because we mama they know waiting best for we picking them, now make we always they choose Sierra juice. Sierra juice is nutritious, it's healthy and it's sweet. Sierra juice, not the taste of Salone.
Me, for can go na junction for go buy extra credit. It want more
say you want for go na street. Because the last extra credit wey me buy na ya asidom wey I buy am.
This one hard for believe.
Na true. Dial *363# with QCell and tell me what he say.
He say buy Q power, get last 3 tokens, register meter and exit.
Easy.
But I no get QCell money.
Na it make am sweet and easy. Just top up your QCell and buy extra credit. No mobile money, no problem. It will be one day na salon.
Okay.
Pass with QCell.
Make a try, man. Hey! Nice car! Yes, use your QCell top up and buy extra light anytime, anytime. Just dial *363# and follow the instructions. Make sure say you register your meter number before you continue.
For more information, dial 111. Terms and conditions apply. QCell. Salon Pride.
My government has unanimously approved a safe motherhood bill. This bill will include a range of critical provisions to ensure the health and dignity of all girls and women of reproductive age in this country.
I was 16 years old, and at that time I would go to school. But during the time I would go to school, I ended up forgetting belly. So I go to my friend after school, I go back at time. I said, so what you want to do now? Follow me no. And I said, pass I go buy medicine while I probably belly. And I said, okay, I see no problem. I went to my call, I go buy the medicine. I buy the medicine, and I can do it. But during that process, I almost lost my life. I bleed a lot to the extent I want to die. Pastor rushed me to go to the hospital. I will go to school from 3 I get belly, but I not know about prevention. So I not know about that. So now I can't get belly. Then I born the kid. Till now I'm not able to go to school again. I've been a victim of rape. It happened a couple of months ago. When that door happened, as my mother see the signs and me, tell me say I don't get Bella, they deny. So from I get the Bella, so I need to go to school again. I stop my school. My friends they mock me and they laugh me. I'm unable to go to school because I'm unable to explain the person. I'm unable to pull the Bella so up till now. I get the Bella soon.
I don't pick for men. They go to school. They can end up forget belly. I vex. People and talk to me say I left her. End of the day, go get one bad party, go advice and say, they go pull the belly. But me no. But the next one when I come, I see the cry saying belly, they are not waiting the one watcher. I see the bleed. I say, what's happen? I begin to cry, I rush, I begin to cry, and I say, what's happening? They do so. He say, auntie, I'm afraid for telling her, one is company who they go to school, and can me go to outside and go pull the belly. The tell her they rush to Ghana for go cottage. The doctor then try the level best, but the pikin will make him. He end up die.
My name is Fatima Masai. I got 5 pikin. My first pikin at the age of 17 years now born, and because of another prevention. Don't let that things hard for me for taking of them beginning day. I had struggle for taking of them beginning day. It's not easy for me for that take care of them.
Tere abigedi bele, I no be dey na town, I be dey na village. Later I go na hospital, I go do the test, na bele. I be dey do 2-3 business there, so I no be dey get time for go to do clinic every time. But luckily, when me time she carry for born, when the mommy check me, then say you picking a foot in the couch. They say na foot she dey born with. And I say okay, let's try all the way for let the picking go turn in aid. They're not able. They torment the picking, so they strain the picking till what can born now, my picking die.
We can get some picking there where na incest. Now the family they be, in most cases the 90 cases na the family, the neighbor. The one way na the family, something na the daddy gi belle. And no one the belle. So no way, pass go drink medicine. Way, and no one the belle. And because of no one this belle and daddy gi belle, pass. At times they go police station. Then go report. At times they go for talk and us. But we not to us talk, not to chief talk. Na police talk, then go na the police station. Then police go give them referral. Then come na the Rainbow Center. And when they can come na the Rainbow Center again, especially when na the daddy give the belle, the pikin then can knock you one the belle. But we can talk to them, counsel them for their life.
One of the best things that can happen to any family, now forget pikin. Now for let woman get belle and then it deliver the baby safely. So in a salon, we don't do everything we can for make sure say the woman then we get belle, then they carry the pregnancy and deliver safely. So we go on bill now in our parliament, we parliament they consider for passing to law. We say every belle woman, we for do everything for her so that it remains safe and let it deliver safely. Who don't want that? I think so we all want that. We all want that because alone, years and years ago, we have in the country where they can say you're free to forget belle now. Because you very likely say either you die or the pikin die or not to die. So over the past years, we don't dramatically change that one. So in fact, first time we over 1,000 people and they die, Beloma and they die for every 100,000 pregnancies we get. Now we're able to reduce that one to about 717 by 2018. Now, just last year, they announced we're going to reduce them by 400 to 443. And now it don't count on even more. One of the important things that we're able for allow we for do this. Now this law within our parliament now we then for pass, we then call the Safe Motherhood Bill. Now bill we say all the belle woman and all the comrades, then for safe, then for be cared for, then for be protected, for let them deliver safely. Again, we make sure say people that we know and get belle, they get an unwanted pregnancy, we're able to protect themselves. We give them all the tools that we will make they don't get pregnant if they don't want for. So we make commodities available, affordable, and accessible for them. So that good law is that good law will be able to protect all of the women in this country. And we will pass this law. We will be on the path for we get zero preventable maternal deaths in this country.
This bill they say we get belle. Government for do all things possible for make this belle safe, let born pikin safe, let the woman be pikin safe. It also they say we no want belle. we dey provide services for am for let you not get this belle, so we not go get unwanted pregnancy then. He also they say that government responsibility for provide comprehensive health service for women them. We get for do anything with woman business. So like them cancer, them breast cancer, cervical cancer, you know what they call infertility. Woman we want get picking, not get picking, treatment of infection, they including HIV/AIDS. This bill they make all them provision in there. Last, the bill they say for woman them we ask that for lie, they rape or girl picking them we subjected to incest. They want that papa they give belle, uncle give belle, or belle where doctor don't say this belle it come for kill this woman if we not pull her, or where doctor don't say the pikin inside this belle even where born am it not go survive, or belle where they threaten the woman in health or in life. This bill they say that woman then they if they want, or then girl picking if they want, under their condition and they no more, we will offer them safe termination of pregnancy. We will offer them, say, if you want police belle, we will pull them on safe side. We are one of the countries that get the most restrictive laws where they govern reproductive health care rights in the world. So now this bill will they put forward, especially with the amendments that will don't make so, it fully aligned with this Maputo protocol. It they say all women get right for get comprehensive reproductive health service, and they say in their special circumstance, the unfortunate circumstance where woman get belle from rape, incest, or belle where go can kill her, or threatening health, or where the picking doctor already say this picking not get for survive. In their instances, then they offer the woman the option for go pull this belle safely if he wants for. This bill fully aligned with this Maputo protocol, but more importantly, it's fully aligned with President Bio in legacy as the president we can champion the health and the rights of women in this country, as the president we don't do the most for women in this nation than any other president in the history of Salon.
If we go back to 1861, we say we get the Offenses Against the Persons Act. That now 163 years ago, we get two provisions there. We really restrict the choices where women them for make. You know, now we only talk about cases in which somebody could be raped, somebody could be a victim of incest, you know, or somebody get like critical medical condition where for make a move on with a pregnancy will cost in life. Under that old law, you know, get option. We want a society who say people are able to enjoy them fundamental human rights. People are able to protect their own health. People are able to born picking when they want and government keep a responsibility for make born picking business be safe for the mommy. This now waiting the safe motherhood day about.
The Safe Motherhood Bill, now law, we simply there for make we save woman and girl picking their life. Every year, too many girl picking them women in this country, they die because they don't get access to basic service. We then get belly, then they die. We then born picking, then they die. This law, it puts together all the things that we need for make sure say we reduce what man called maternal mortality. That now we woman they die because we anything related to we get belly. I know say plenty people go ask questions. But this law, you know, can't for promote anything bad. In fact, it can't say for regulate if you say, pauper, you don't want to keep that belly, you don't want to let the person die because the state's responsibility. Now for ensure say we regulate, we provide services, we make sure say it's safe, we control, and ultimately for save the lives of the people that will get now with the citizens of this country.
A place cannot produce poems. It can only not prevent them. And Freetown is good at that, for Freetown has its own sudden elegances. People are slow to leave it, quick to return. And there are others who come for a year or two and stay for a lifetime, sensing that they found a city that is in the world, yet sufficiently on the edge of it to have a different resonance.
Let me tell you something about this city. All of us, we're all just passing through, and we've all been here forever.
Those who came, those who stayed, those who never returned. Tides turn, seasons change, we've waited and we've watched. But we've always been here. We've always listened, because there is a different resonance here. It comes from the river, and the land, and the sky.
It's our place, all of us.
This city belongs to everyone.
And you know when it's your time.
And it's our time.
Listen, we are Freetown.
The golden rules of Freetown.
Don't pretend you're something that you're not.
Don't go thinking you're better than anyone else,
or that anyone else is better than you.
Don't shout about it. Get on with it.
We are Freetown.
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 Yeah.
We found our voice again.
I'm from India and Freetown.
I'm from China and Freetown.
I'm from the UK and Freetown.
I am from Nigeria and Freetown.
I am from home and Freetown.
This city belongs to everyone.
The fishermen,
the taxi driver,
the barber,
the drummers, the dancers.
All of us, everybody. We are Freetown.
The past is ours.
The future is ours. It's our time again.
And this city belongs to everyone.
The playwright,
the greengrocer,
the teacher,
the dog.
This space is ours.
This light is ours.
The beaches are ours. The rivers now we own.
The roads are ours.
The bridges now we own.
We are Freetown.
We are all visitors and we've all been here forever.
We've got the mightiest river.
And the biggest sky.
And there's a resonance again.
Freetown. Freetown. We are proud of this place.
We love this city.
And we want you to love it too.
We are proud of this place.
Na pass we all dey pass like stranger dem, but we all don't dare from ten. Come here, and you'll feel it, that end of the line sense of freedom. Say yes to Freetown. Say yes to freedom.
When I look at the person of Jesus, one very important thing that I find in him is he always was a person of composure. He took an equilibrium as the means of his approach to anything that came on his way. In the Indian Sanskrit language, we call it as dhammam, which means a sense of self-restraint and a self-discipline, which helps me to approach the realities that I encounter with an equanimity of mind and body.
मूलं समीक्ष्य यत्र गम्यता सर्वेषामागम तथैव प्रवृत्ति मूलं समीक्ष्य यत्र गम्यता सर्वेषामागम तथैव प्रवृत्ति.
Sisters and brothers, a very hearty welcome to each one of you to this monthly recollection talk in the season of Lent. With Ash Wednesday, we are commencing the season of Lent with an intensive preparation to journey with Jesus, our Master and Lord, in his time of trials, struggles, and persecutions, with a further purpose of passion, death, and resurrection and ascension. Yes, my sisters and brothers, the season of Lent renews once again our inner thirst for knowing the Lord better and to remedy those areas of our lives which we have not handled properly. And one of those measures that we take normally during the season of Lent is the aspect of fasting. Today, I would like to deal with this particular point in a little detailed manner, even to ask a further question: why did Jesus fast? And why should we fast during the season of Lent? In order to make us a bit more conscious about this concept of fasting and what God would expect of us through fasting, I would like to read before you a passage from the book of prophet Isaiah, chapter 58, verses 3 to 8. Why have we fasted, and thou seest it not? Why have we humbled ourselves, and thou takest no knowledge of it? Behold, in the day of your fast, you seek your own pleasure and oppress all your workers. Behold, you fast only to quarrel and to fight, and to hit with a wicked fist. Fasting like yours this day will not make your voice to be heard on high. Is such the fast that I choose, a day for a man to humble himself? Is it to bow down his head like a rush, and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Will you call this a fast, and a day acceptable to the Lord? Is not this the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover him, and not to hide yourself from your own flesh? Then shall your light break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up speedily. Your righteousness shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Yes, my sisters and brothers, this particular passage that we listened from the book of prophet Isaiah brings before us the practical aspect of fasting. Very often, we connect the concept of fasting with an abnegation of food. But the prophet nor the scripture are telling us to avoid fasting from food. But on the other side, what does it achieve as its goal? Are we bettering the quality of our life? And that perhaps is the finest question that we need to ask today when we are entering into the season of Lent. I was always enchanted by the teachings of Pope Francis. And naturally, he speaks also something very special about fasting. He too, as we read in the book of Prophet Isaiah, mentions about fasting as something that we need to take from a higher perspective than merely thinking in terms of avoiding food. He would speak about 5 kinds of fasting that we need to enter into. The very first fasting that each of us is called to practice is a fasting from sin. Yes, we need to avoid the lifestyle of sin. Sin of pride, sin of greed, sin of anger. What for? In order to purify our soul, our mind, as well as our body too. A second aspect of fasting that Pope Francis would insist is fast from indifference. There are very many times we enter into an indifferent attitude towards others. Indifference is a big sin. And we need to respect people in a very special manner, especially those who are marginalized in our society. People who are poor, weak, and struggling to survive in their lives. It in fact brings forth a sense of compassion and a sense of justice and righteousness as a consequence of it. A third dimension of fasting that Pope Francis insists is fasting from consumerism. Yes, consumerism is always a dangerous threat that we are facing today. Very often we think in terms of consumerism merely from the point of view of the food. No, consumerism needs to be attached to that aspect of avoiding those materialistic tendencies in order to live a proper channel of life through refined understanding of the given gifts that God has entrusted us with. A fourth dimension of fasting that we need to practice in our life is fasting from violence. Violence not only of physical but also verbal and psychological. We need to safeguard the dignity of the other person. And a final aspect of fasting that we need to undertake today is the fasting from gossiping and negative speech. Yes, my sisters and brothers, this is a very important invitation for us to take charge of ourselves from a holistic perspective and to understand how we need to take a new approach to the very concept of fasting. Yes, having read this particular passage from the book of Prophet Isaiah and also listened to the teaching of Pope Francis in our own time, let's just have a look at this concept of fasting also from the point of view of the food that we eat. When I look at the person of Jesus, one very important thing that I find in him is he always was a person of composure. He took an equilibrium as the means of his approach to anything that came on his way. In the Indian Sanskrit language, we call it as dhammam, which means a sense of self-restraint and a self-discipline, which helps me to approach the realities that I encounter with an equanimity of mind and body. Saint Augustine would say, virtue stands in the middle. We could very well knit this aspect of fasting with this understanding of a middle path that we need to take today as the pattern of our fasting in the context of the season of Lent. When it comes to the bodily approach of fasting, there are 2 dimensions that we give to it. The very first aspect is that pampering of the body. That means we take too much care to take care of the body. It's a kind of an Epicurean mindset. You know what Epicureanism is? Epicureanism comes from that attitude or a philosophical mindset where one begins to think, my body is everything for me, therefore I take care of the body by eating as much as I can and take pleasure out of it. To that extent, they even made a vomitorium. After having had their fill, when they understood that they could not eat anymore, they went and vomited there and began to eat again. Too much of addiction to food and that which is concerning the body. That's the first dimension of the bodily care that we find when it comes to the fasting. But there is an opposite dimension as well. That is, too much of stoicism regarding body. We have heard about that famous statement or the word fuga mundi. That is, running away from the world, running away from the bodiliness of my existence. Such people begin to fast to that extent that they punish their body without any care for it. It is said in some of the old monasteries, even today they hang on the walls some of those instruments which the monks of that time used to have in order to chastise their bodies. A reminder for the forthcoming generations to understand how they negated their bodiliness and tried to be holy in the living context of their life. Perhaps this is something that is of yet another extreme dimension. This is perhaps where we have to take that teaching of St. Augustine once again to our hearts. Virtue stands in the middle. There is a very interesting incident narrated about a master, a guru. He was sitting along with his disciples. He took a violin in his hands and then he began to tighten the strings of this violin. To that extent, it was very tight and was almost at the point of breaking. Then the disciples shouted aloud, "Master, if you tighten it more, it would break." Then the master decided to take the reverse order. He began to loosen the strings so much, to that extent, the disciples began to shout aloud and tell him, "Master, if you loosen that string so much, no music would ever come out of it." And there comes the wisdom of the master. It is better to take a balanced approach to life. Yes, my sisters and brothers, every religion practiced fasting. Look at our brothers and sisters in the Islam religion. During the time of Ramzan, they would not even sulk saliva so that they would not break their fasting. What about the rishis and sannyasis of our country, India? They fasted so many days together, eating only the fresh leaves of the trees. Yes, there had been a sustained aspect of this fasting in the concrete context of the people of our own country and traditions. It's where that I look at Jesus a bit more closely. I ask the question, how did Jesus begin his public ministry? The gospel beautifully narrates, he went into the desert, led by the Holy Spirit, and there he fasted for 40 days and nights alone in the desert. He prayed, he fasted, he experienced the silence of the heart. And this fasting of Jesus is highlighted very much in the concrete context of his further life as he entered into the public ministry. What we notice here is this. Jesus developed a culture of fasting, which was something very strange from the traditions of that time. The contextual situation of Jesus' time demanded that fasting was something very external. People totally negated food, remained without eating anything, and they showed it out also in the public that they are fasting. It's in this context that we hear some people asking Jesus some fundamental questions. Why is it that your disciples are not fasting when the disciples of John are fasting? If we keenly look at this question, we would find here that that question is not directed to Jesus, nor is it an accusation against Jesus. It's all about why his disciples are not fasting. So it is here that we need to see the answer of Jesus is bringing something fundamental to their understanding. Jesus makes a statement. When the bridegroom is with them, they need not fast. Yes, that statement has something very special to communicate. The Gospel of John beautifully brings out this particular statement of Jesus. Who is this bridegroom? My dear brothers and sisters, we must remember the bridegroom is an ideal figure, someone who is perfect in everything. And we must realize no woman ever has found in her life that ideal husband or person whom she is searching for. Therefore, when Jesus is saying, when the bridegroom is with them, they need not fast, he is giving them one of the most ingredient aspects of their spirituality. That is, I who am that ideal figure whom you are searching for, am with you, then why should you be fasting now? My presence should be the most joyful aspect of your life. It also invites us to understand certain nuances of Jesus' teaching. He is telling that most often we should realize we are rid of the presence of the ideal bridegroom in our lives. Therefore, we are in a search that makes us to understand I have got vacuum situations of my life, areas where I feel empty. I need to be filled in with some kind of a spiritual dimensions of my life. That's where Jesus is telling every search for the bridegroom should be spontaneous. It should never be forced upon someone. It needs a self-realization from your side as to what kind of a fasting are you to take. It should lead you to a further understanding. Are you rid of certain dimensions of your life today? The essentials of your life. What are those essentials? Are you rid of love? Have you broken your relationship? Are you in an angry situation with someone else? Perhaps these are moments when you need to take into consideration the necessity to get back to that bridegroom who is no more with me. Yes, ideal is always necessary. A focus is always necessary in order to achieve the target of my life. Therefore, I may have to choose to fast. I may have to do certain kind of penances in my life in order to achieve the target that I am looking for. In this context, we must also understand fasting is not merely the abnegation of food. Fasting is in fact a desert experience. That exactly is what Jesus is teaching us. He went into the desert and there, what was he experiencing? He was experiencing solitariness. He was experiencing silence. He was experiencing intimate relationship with God. That's why very often we connect this concept of fasting with that Sanskrit word upavasa. Sisters and brothers, what does it mean to be in upavasa? Upa means with. Vasa means to stay. To stay with someone whom I love so much. That in fact is upavasa. So the fasting that Jesus did in the desert was not merely an abnegation of the food, but it was equally entering into a choice of his life. That's why we say it is a solitariness. It is not an isolation. He chose to be alone. He was solitary. He was in total silence. There was no human being ever with him. Perhaps the only time in his public ministry, where Jesus was totally alone, was when he was praying, and at the same time, an intimate relationship with God. That's why when he went into the house of Mary and Martha, he negated the complaints of Martha. He tells her, and how? Calling her name twice, Martha, Martha, which means something important is coming now. Mary has chosen the right path. She has chosen to be in Uppavasa with me. She is sitting at my feet. It is a challenging statement for all of us. We should equally become aware we are Marthas of the modern time, running around everywhere, not knowing where to attend to, not knowing what we are listening. We are worried until and unless we are involved in, things will not be settled. My presence is necessary. I have to do this. I have to go there. I have to come back at this particular time. Everything is centered on me, and the Martha in me is so turbulent to that extent, I'm no more able to fulfill any task or responsibility of my life. Martha, Martha, Mary has chosen the best Uppavasa, the best part of her life, by sitting at my feet. In this context, Jesus also equally makes us aware fasting is something very personal. The entry of Jesus into the desert also shows forth it is not a public show. At that time when Jesus was speaking to the people, he knew very well what was the attitude of the Sadducees and the Pharisees. They were people who were showing forth their paraphernalia, showing for their ritualism and their external gestures of prayer and fasting. To give alms in the public was something very pleasurable for them. They always took happiness in publicly pronouncing, I fasted for these many hours or days. It's in this context Jesus would say very beautifully, understand, when you are fasting, do not show yourself